Okay, guys, so I've given you the answer to this because the solution itself isn't really the important part. It's the work to get to the solution that's the important part. This one says solve by graphing, so you have to graph. If you don't do this by graphing, if you don't have the correct graph, you're not getting points. Okay, if you don't have a graph at all, you're getting 0 points for the problem, regardless of whether you have the solution or not. You all follow that. That's really important to know. Some folks will leave this blank, or some folks will do this by substitution or elimination and get 0 points on this problem. That's not good. Okay? All right, so what we're going to do, the first step that you do is you solve both equations for y so that we can graph it. There's other ways to graph it, but this is the way we're going to focus on in this chapter. You can reference your flowchart if you want that we just made in class to kind of give you the steps if you lose track of it while we're doing these problems as well. So the first one, we're going to solve it for y. So we get 2y equals negative 3x plus 2. Then we're going to divide both sides by 2. So we get negative 3x, negative 3 halves x plus 2, plus 1 rather, plus 1. And that's the equation that we're going to wind up graphing. So we start at the y-intercept of 1, which is on the y-axis. Then we're going to use our slope negative 3 over 2. So we're going to go down 3, right 2. And we can continue that. Okay, and then you guys need to graph with a straight edge because it needs to be really straight and go through the points. And your eraser doesn't work as well as mine does on the computer. So that's the first graph. Then the second one, we're going to solve it for y, so we're going to add 3x to both sides. Some of you will write it like this. Oops. Some of you will write it like this. If you write it like that, the slope is still 3, and the y-intercept is still negative 8. The slope is always the thing times the x, not the thing written out front, not the value written out front. It's always the coefficient of x. So then our y-intercept now is negative 8, so we go all the way down to negative 8. And then from there, our slope is 3, which gives us our directions. We go up 3, 1, 2, 3, right 1. We do that again, up 3, right 1. And this crosses at the nice, neat point. Third time's the charm, I suppose. Of 2, negative 2. Okay? And that's our solution. How many solutions? We have one solution. Okay? Any questions? Let's progress to the next one. Solve the following system by substitution. If you reference your flowchart, this says pick one of the equations and one of the variables to solve for. We're solving by substitution on this one. If you reference your flowchart, the first step to solve by substitution is pick one of the variables on one of the equations to solve for. You want to pick the easiest variable. It's typically going to be a variable that's just multiplied by 1, or that's added, just added, not multiplied by 2 or 3. There's no coefficient other than 1 in front of the variable. In this case, the easiest one to solve for is this y, because the coefficient's 1. Solve that for y. So we add 3x to both sides. We get y equals 3x minus 8. Then we take that new equation and we substitute it into the other equation right there. So when we rewrite it, 3x plus 2 times 3x minus 8 then equals 2. What you'll notice is there's no more y's. When we substituted it in there, the y's went away. We replaced the y. We substituted that expression in for y, so we no longer have any y's. From here, we distribute and solve. So we get 3x plus 6x minus 16 equals 2. Then we combine like terms. 3x plus 6x is 9x minus 16 equals 2. We're going to add 16 to both sides to get the x by itself. So we get 9x equals 18 when we add 16. Divide by 2, we get x equals 2. And that's good because that's actually the solution we wanted to have, which is going to be the same solution from the previous problem because it's the same exact problem. We're just doing it different. We're using a different method in this case. What do we do after that? Take that expression for x, or that value for x, and we substitute it into the new equation that we made from step 1. You can reference your flowchart too, of course, if you get stuck. So you get y equals 3 times 2 minus 8. Y equals 6 minus 8. Y equals negative 2. And that gives you our answer. We have one solution. So we're going to solve this system by elimination. To do that, we need to eliminate one of the variables. When you're doing elimination, you need to think about 3 things before you're able to add it and eliminate the variable. You want to look at the same variable. Oops. Those same variables need to have the same number out in front. Okay, needs to have the same number out in front, but they need to have different signs in front of them. Okay, if you have those 3 things, it's set up and ready to add the 2 equations, which will allow you to eliminate one of the variables. Because a positive and a negative, those are 2 opposite numbers, they add together and make 0. So if you have 0x or 0y, that's going to eliminate the variable. Make sense? Okay, so let's ask ourselves, is number 1 already set up? Same variable? Same number? Different sign? Which variable?
Y.
Do you guys notice that the y is the same? So we're going to add those together. So we're going to do 1x plus 3x is 4x. Negative 3y plus 3y is 0. 7 plus 9 is 16. And then to simplify it a little bit more, you don't need the 0 there. So it's 4x equals 16. Can you solve it for x now? X equals 4. What do you do now? You do the same thing that you did with substitution at this point. You take that value, for the variable, you put it into one of the originals, one of the other equations, and you solve it for the variable that's left. Which equation do you want to do, first or second? It doesn't matter, guys. You pick the one that you think is easier. If it's easier always to put it in the first one, always put it in the first one. To you, if it's easier to find, to look at the 2 and figure out which one is less steps, do that. I'm going to put this into the first one because that's not just the first one, it's also the one with the least amount of steps to do. Then we solve it. Minus 4 from both sides. 7 minus 4 is 3, correct? Divide by negative 3, you get y is negative 1. So you get the answer 4, negative 1. Any questions? Notice one thing that's consistent on all these problems, though. Notice how the x's are lined up in a column and the y's are lined up in another column, both on the left-hand side, and then the constants or the numbers by themselves, okay, the numbers that are by themselves, those are on the right-hand side of the equal sign. Before you do any of this work, you have to get that lined up, okay, and that ultimately is going to be the first step that we're doing on these problems, okay. The reason why, if they're not lined up, you can't just add them straight down. It's not as mechanical. Does that make sense? But right now, number 2, do we have the same variable having the same number and different signs? Which one? X or Y? Both, right? Both have the same, both of the variables, X's and the Y's, they have the same number and different signs. So do you guys know what's going to happen? Do you guys kind of guess what's going to happen here? 5x minus 5x is 0. 6y minus 6y is 0. 45 plus 38 is 83. You get 0 equals 83 for this problem. What's your final answer then? Absolutely. Great job. No solution is right. Okay, because that doesn't make a true statement. Okay, let's progress to number 3. Same variable, same number, different signs. Is it set up? Is our x's or our y's set up? Our x's are set up, aren't they? Not our y's, but our x's are. So when we add it, our x's are going to be eliminated because 4x minus 4x is going to be 0 x's, which is going to be 0. When we add straight down, that's 0. That's 2y, and that's negative 3. So we get y equals negative, divide by 2, negative 3/2. What do we do after that? Same spot as substitution, where we take it and you substitute it into one of the originals. You want to do the first one or the second one? It doesn't matter. You do whichever one you think is easiest. I think the first one winds up being easiest. Okay, so we take that value for y and we substitute it in there for y. Okay, it's negative 2 times negative 3/2 is going to be positive 3, correct? Minus 3, minus 3. 4x equals negative 4, x equals negative 1. So we get our solution, negative 1, negative 3/2. Any questions on that? Next one, set them up. Is it set up? Same variable, same number, different signs? If it is, we add it straight down the columns and we see what happens. The x's are, if you notice that first. The y's are also set up. Okay, so they're going to both drop out, but at the very least you need to recognize that the x's are or the y's are, one of the two, before you add it. Don't add it unless you know it's set up like that, because then they're not going to officially drop out. 6x minus 6x is 0x, so it's just 0. 9y minus 9y is 0y, which is just 0. 15 minus 15 is, or 15 plus negative 15 is 0. 0 equals 0. Which solution is that? Which answer? Infinitely many. Okay? Any questions?